Hi, I'm Sherry McGill, and you're watching Lessons Learned. Today I'm going to show you how to make a very simple market bag. I have this pattern from Quilter's World that was sent to me in the mail. And it's their pattern, so I can't really show you the measurements, but you'll be able to follow along with me and make this bag. What is a market bag? Well, a market bag is a bag you take to the market, obviously. They come in really handy if you go to the farmer's market and you pick up several things there from the different vendors. And then you have one central bag to put all of your purchases into. Or you can use them in some grocery stores if they allow you to. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm using a charm pack, and that is basically the basis for this bag. And I have the painted Patchwork by Clothworks. Nice little variety of fabrics that will go together well, obviously. And then I have my lining fabric that I chose from my stash, and I have some muslin, and those two pieces are the same size. And then I also have a same size of batting and 2 strips for the handles. And you'll notice that on this bag the handles, there's 2, so essentially the bag would sit on your arm with two straps like this. So if that works for you, then this will be a very simple pattern to follow. And you may be able to find this online as well under Quilter's World's website. But if not, I think you'll be able to figure out how to put this together. So what we're going to start off with is choosing 35 of the squares out of the charm pack. And we have 35 of them will make the bag, and there will be 4 of these used as strips for your handles. So altogether you're going to have 3 rows of 8 squares and 1 row of 3 squares that makes the bottom, and then 4 squares that makes the handles. So let me go ahead and pick out my 35 squares I want to use from this, because there are 42. Okay, so that's what I've come up with, and that's how I'm going to sew them together. I got 3 rows of 8 and a row of 3. And that row of 3 goes right where I have placed it there. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine, sew these up. Okay, so you're looking at me from above. Here's my machine. I have the top open here. I threaded my bobbin, and I'm using Coats & Clark 100% polyester thread and a dark blue. It's almost like a royal blue. It's kind of almost purple, but a very dark purple. And I've got my machine threaded, and I have a Microtex, I think it's size 12 on my machine needle, and I think I'm ready to go. Just regular old 4 tension and about a 2 or a little bit less than 2 stitch length, and we're ready to start sewing our rows together. So I just have them laying over here to my side in stacks. This is row 1, row 2, and then I have row 3 behind that, and then the short just the 3 square row last. So I'm just going to sew these together with a 1/4 inch seam. I have my 1/4 inch foot on my machine to guide me on that, and so here we go. And these little pinked or zigzag edges on here, just kind of sew more towards the inside of the V's instead of the outside. And the main thing is, no matter where you choose to sew or where you choose to butt that up against to get your 1/4 inch seam, just be consistent throughout the whole project. So some people say sew to the outside, and some people say sew to the inside. I like to sew towards the inside of the little cuts. So here we go. And I can chain piece these 2 at a time, then come back and put those pairs together. So I just clip them apart, lay them on top of each other. I'll show you how to do one row here. Open that one up, that top one, and go to your next one. Just make sure you don't have the same prints side by side or like patterns side by side, so you can get a good variety. You know, over there on the table, I basically just kind of picked a random assortment that made sense, and they're all different, so if I get anything too close looking together, I'll rotate it. So I can leave that on there and go to my next 2. Let's see what I have here. Looks like maybe that's supposed to go there. Let's do it this way. Always right sides together. Okay, there's my first row of 8. Yes. Go on to my next row. Whoops, it's bound to happen. I got a wrong side to a right side. And how I rip out is I just take the seam ripper and go about every 5 or 6 stitches and rip one seam, and then I should be able to pull it apart. There you go. Pick all your little threads out and start again. That was on the second to the last square. Almost made it. So now I'm going to go over to my hot steam iron and press all of these short seams open so that I can sew a long seam to attach them all together. So that's how I'm going to do that. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here are how these rows go together. We have our 3 8 square rows. Those are going to be attached. And then once you get down to where you have your 3 row, you leave this one blank and these 4 blank. So start with the second square on the last of the long row and start sewing there. These first 2 long rows that you do, just fold that second one right over the top of the top one. And we're going to sew right here. And you can pin each one of these intersections to make sure they line up. You guys know how I feel about pins. This is your first time here. Yeah, I don't like to use pins unless I absolutely have to. And for something like a market bag, I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm just going to try try to keep them pretty much in line with each other. Main thing is to make sure your seams don't flip. You've just went and done all that work to get them nice and flat, so try to not let them flip on you on the back side. If you see that you're not going to match up on the next one coming up, you can kind of ease, stretch a little, not much, on whoever's short, and put a little ease into the block that's looser. So if they don't match up, that means one block is loose and one block is tight. So you just kind of have to split the difference there and gently pull the tight one and then ease in the extra on the loose one. These are matching up very well because no doubt they're laser cut to be the same size. So as long as my seams are all consistent, they should, for the most part, match exactly up. And they are. I'm looking at my last ones here, and I'm going to make that exactly lining up on the very end for the last one. So if I have anything loose or tight in between, which the hope is it just lays flat, this is where the adjustment gets made if it's not very much. And it's not. I think it's going to lay flat. And if it's out just a little bit, once you're done, this will end up in a seam allowance eventually, so no worries. Okay. There's my first two rows together. And they look pretty good. Just a teeny tiny bit off on a couple of them, but it's not going to show with this busy pattern. Let me show you the worst one. And I don't know how I missed this because it was right near the beginning. Right here, I guess. I mean, it's just barely off. I'm not worried about it. The rest of them are right on. So now I need to put my third row on. And let's see, where does that go? Easy to get things turned around here. So all you have to do is just lay it back down and make sure all the design makes sense before you go ahead and put that seam in. Okay, I'm going to look at my little seam here, make sure they line up, the end is lined up, ready to go again. Okay, that one's getting way off. Let me just see what I can do about that. I think I may have been tugging on it a little bit more than I should have. I have to do a little easing in on this top layer here. It'll be okay. See how I'm just taking my fingers and just kind of walking that floppiness out of that top layer because it's longer than my bottom layer for some reason. This is why you pay very good attention to what you're doing when you're sewing along, because very easily, if you just fly down through here, I guarantee you it's not going to be matched up very well when you get done. Now I'm back on track. I'll show you that eased part here in a second. Looks like it's coming out good on the end. Okay, think it was right here, I noticed that I had, well, I don't know where that thread came from, but I noticed that I had extra coming up here. And I found myself towards the end, I wished I'd have found myself more up here before I saw that extra coming in. But you see I eased in just barely a little wrinkle there. It's not a pleat, it's just a little, and that will come out as a little bulge on your project. But once we give it a good steam and get it quilted, not a problem. It already looks like it's disappearing. And then as I went down, I straightened right back up, and they came right back together again. So you can see there, this print is kind of hard to see, but you can see my four corners came together perfect, and the rest of it did all the way down. Okay, so now all I have to do is put on my bottom, which is this little short row. And remember, I said to move over one square from the end. So you're going to want to match up your seams, your two seams that you have. But you're going to start over here. So make sure you've got that. Match up your seam here, and then see where you need to start down here. And if you're scared of that moving, just start sewing right here and then come back and do this. It's a little precarious because you don't have two loose ends, you have a solid end down here. It's already together. Okay, I think I got it. Make sure my seams are still matching up. Looks like they are. I think I might put a little back stitch on this since it's just kind of flapping in the wind here. So I'm going to lock that in. Okay. So now what I have to do, let me show you. There's my piece. Okay. That's the whole outside of the tote bag or the market bag. So I'm going to go and do as I did with my other seams, and these long seams I will open the seam and press them open. Nice. The next step is going to be to put the batting and the muslin on the back, on the inside of this, and I'm going to do the quilting on this piece. Yeah, so I'll be right back with that once I get my pressing done. Alright, so here's our market bag outside print, and then we have the batting and the muslin. So logically you just need a size a little bit bigger than your finished outside there once it's all sewn together. And then you go to the sewing machine and you quilt it. You could do meanders, you could do any type of free motion, you could do straight lines, and I bet you guys can guess what I'm going to do. I'm going to do my crosshatch on these and see what I come out with. So I'm going to go over to the machine and do that, and you can hang out and watch me do it. I'm going to trade out my foot for my walking foot, which involves taking the little shank foot holder thing off. Not a whole lot of problem, but it's a little delay in progress here. Okay, let's see if I can get that screwed back in there where it goes. Okay, I'm going to set, leaving my thread and my needle the same. I'm going to change my stitch length to 4, and stitch width stays the same, and I don't think for this I will need to change the tension. So I'm just going to go for it, and I'm going to start in the middle. I'm going to start on the 3rd square, and I did spray a little spray glue on these layers, just a little bit. And I'm not marking anything, I'm just aiming high for that next corner. See how this is looking before I keep going. Looks pretty good. Might change my tension to a 5. Yeah, 5 for tension was an improvement, I think. So I'm just looking to see if I have an X in every box, and it looks like I do. So I could put some more on, or could put some curves in. Let's see, what could I do? I think I'm going to put some curves in. I'm going to take, let's see if I can show you. Okay, I've got my X through here. And I think I'm going to go in and out of this seam with a curve as well. That'd be easy. Let's see if I can do that. I'll try it on the bottom half first, just in case it doesn't look right. That might be good. I think I'll try it. This is making a really cute design, actually. I think the key to it is to make sure your lines all intersect in one point. That way it stays kind of neat, even though I'm eyeballing the shape. Just kind of have a mental image of a petal or a leaf in my head, and I'm just kind of following my brain's lead on that. Turning out okay. Okay, I'm just going to check all my squares and make sure I've got my little curves around each one. Looks good. I think it turned out pretty good. And yeah, I was using dark thread, but I think it's okay for this. And plus I was thinking of my handles. You know, when you have a light colored thread on your handles, they get to looking pretty grimy, so a darker thread is better. And then here's what the back looks like, just so you can get an idea of how that quilting turned out. I think it turned out okay, don't you? Yeah. Okay, so now I'm just going to go trim up to the edge of the top, the entire bag top. So now what I have to do is put my right sides together. Now that this is all trimmed, put right sides together with my lining. And that is to trace around this so that we can get an exact piece of lining the same size as our actual outer bag piece. So I'm just going to draw some lines on here with pencil and just cut this out. You can do it with your scissors or your rotary cutter. I'm not going to cut it out with the rotary cutter with this laying on top of it, but you could if you felt brave enough to do it without accidentally cutting into your quilt top you just did. So I'm just gonna make a few pencil marks here, and then I think I'll use my rotary cutter and my ruler. There we go. Alright, now I can see. Don't ever do this. Cut towards you. Not a good idea. Plus it doesn't even work. Okay, so we're just going to set this lining aside until we get to that step. Okay, next, so I'm going to take this and put these right sides together, and that's going to leave this section right here open. So what we're going to do is sew this side down together, right sides together. I'm going to change my stitch length back to 2-ish. And we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam on this. I did a back stitch. Did a back stitch to end as well. And yes, I still have my walking foot on. That's okay, since especially since I'm still working with the quilted area here. And let's see what the next step is. A little hunk of fuzz right there in that stitch. Just take your fingernail, if that ever happens to you. This is the inside of the bag. It's never going to be seen, but Doesn't like that. Okay. So the next thing to do is to let's see, how's this gonna go? It's gonna be like this, and then this. It's gonna be like this. Okay, so you've got your short row. Remember the short row that'll be the bottom? So you're gonna match this up with the middle of this and sew it. 1/4 inch seam again. And I can see from my quilting, where I was doing my quilting, where I should start. Because you want to put those 3 blocks right next to the 3 blocks on the opposite side, right sides together. I'm going to do a back stitch again. Another very important thing is to make sure you don't get anything wadded up under here and then it get in with your stitching. That's the one disadvantage of having your machine sunk down into a table, is you lose the ability to use your free arm, which is not a big deal in the case of something bigger like this. But if you're doing like a sleeve or something like that, a free arm is very helpful. I'm going to open this little seam here that I've just made. Back stitch again. Okay. So now we need to sew the bottom corners. The bottom ends, actually. So see, that formed the bottom attached to the other side. Now we need to sew these up. So right sides together. Make sure all your fabric's out of the way. And we'll do us a back stitch on here, a good one. Make sure it's a good long one. And we'll just follow this all the way over to the other side. There's that one. Now we'll do this one. I'm air sewing. I have no bobbin. Wow, I used a whole bobbin already. I guess, oh, it's because of all that quilting I did, isn't it? Yep, that's what it is. Probably would have had enough had I not went back and done those curves, but I think it really added something to it. Added something to the design of the bag. Talk amongst yourselves while I roll this bobbin. Okay, let's get back to our sewing up our corners here. Or a bag bottom. Okay. Now we just need to turn it out inside out. Gonna start seeing it take shape. This is a pretty big bag. Cool. I'm liking it. Look at that. There's our corners. I say corners, you know what I mean. The bottom. There's the main part of it. This is a big bag. I didn't think it was going to be this big. You need a big bag when you go to the market though, right? Uh-oh. Ruh-roh. I had one that didn't catch. I'm going to go back after that. Let's try that again. You know what? I'm gonna go from this side. So I took another scant 1/8 of an inch on that side. Let's see if that caught it. Well, I still see a little bit of white. Let me just go right in this area. For some reason, that one just doesn't want to be in there. That got it. Yep, that got it. Got it. It's all in there now. See if this side's in. Yep. It's all in. Super cute. Super cute. I'm liking it. Okay, so the next step is to sew up the lining in the same way that we just did this. So let me go get that. And that means we need to put these two sides together, right? To put these two sides together and leave this bottom hanging down. Right sides together here. Just like what we did on our outer shell. Yeah, I still have my walking foot on. Probably could take it off now. We'll see. So now we'll take it like this, and what we're going to want to do is make sure, since we don't have the squares to gauge by, we just need to make sure we have the same amount on both sides here, because what we're going to do is sew this to it. So really I should say we want to make sure we have the same amount on either side of this. See what I'm saying? So let me show you what I mean a little bit better. This needs to go like this, but this needs to go to this edge. So measure, or somewhat measure, eyeball it, whatever you want to do, and then go back down here and put that in that exact position with the other side. This is the bottom of your bag, and see, there's the two sides that you're going to sew up. It's basically this side, the seam. You just move that seam that you just made over to the edge of this. That's the right measurement. And then just reach down here and pull that up to that. See, there's that seam, and then this needs to be right up to that. And I'm going to sew that down. If I can ever get started. Okay. So now all we have to do is sew up our bottoms, the edges of the bottom. These two. Remember when I was air sewing a while ago? That's this part. But it's on the lining instead of the back. Okay. It says to press it, but do not turn it right side out. I don't know what needs pressing here. There's no way to open those seams and press them. Not worrying about it. I pressed this material before. So this is going to go sit right down inside the bag. And then that's what you'll see inside the bag once it's all stitched in. And we're just going to stitch the top edge of it. So, but we're not ready for that yet. They want us to make the straps. Alright, let's go back over here and get our materials for our strap. Join 4 squares. I need 4 of my squares from my charm pack. And I think I'm going to use some fancy ones. Whatever I've got left here. I just really like this. It's pretty. Let's see, what's it say to do? Join 4A strips. So it's all going to be the same, but we're going to cut from these. So I probably should do I want all busy ones or do I want some solid ones in there? I'm not sure. Let's see here. I like that purple one. 2, 3, 4. I don't know. I like this one too. It's pretty dark though. Do I have a purple one in there? I don't think I have a purple one, do I? So we'll do a purple one of these. And I do have one of these, and I do have one of these, and I do have one of these. Got one of these. Got a bright green. These are on the bottom. So there's the blue one. Do I have a blue one? Yes. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do those 4 right here. These ones. Okay, so they said put them together. Sew them all together in a strip. That's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm getting a little loopy here. Might have to go get a snack. You hear that walking foot? It is squeaky. Does anybody know if you should grease your walking foot? Okay, so I would imagine I need to go over here and iron this. And it says to fold, let's see. I'll have to read this. Hang on. Okay, so it says to make a second one of these. So I need another color combination. Let's see. Maybe this time I will use one of these aqua. I did that one. I did that one. There's that. And there's this. And maybe this. No? Or maybe I should do another one of these. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I don't know, I kind of almost want that in there. I think I want that one instead of the aqua. Should I? Yeah. Maybe put them like this. Yeah, let's do that. Although, no, that's not the same. Let's do these. All right. There's two of those for 2 straps. Okay, so what it's telling me to do is to press under a 1/4 inch on each side of this. Okay, and then you take your strip and you put it under one of those 1/4 inches, and then you take it over and stitch it. That's what I'm understanding right now. I'm going to read again just to be sure. And I think what I might do is cut these pinked edges off. I think they're just going to get in the way. Yep, that's what it is. So I'm going to, because I think these are, if you do that 1/4 inch, and then you do this 1/4 inch, I don't know, maybe I better not do that. So let me go press these 1/4 inch long ends on both sides of both of these strips. Okay, so here's my 1/4 inch turned down on each side, and I about burnt my fingers off trying to do that. If you've sewn for a long time, you can just kind of guess what a 1/4 inch is. If not, get one of those sliding rulers for sewing. It's mostly for dressmaking and like for doing hems and stuff. But you can adjust on there a stop on the ruler, and you can use that to measure, fold it over and measure with that, and then iron it. And you can also kind of finger press these down instead of burning yourself like I do. Just kind of finger press it down real good, and then it'll lay down long enough for you to iron it without burning yourself. Okay, so what I'm supposed to do now is take this strip, which is half the size of this minus 1/4, and stick it under there, right in that fold. Okay, so it's telling me to fold this right here and actually bring it over to here, and I feel a little bit of a ridge over here, like this is too wide, or maybe I made my fold a little too deep. So I think what I might do in that case is nothing, because it makes a little ridge right there, but I'll top stitch that down too. And my batting's not very thick, so if it wants to make a little fold right there, it's just going to make a nice little edge. So that way it'll match up with this edge. Alright, let's do it. top stitch. Top stitch should at least be a 3 length. You can make it 4 if you want, but 3 is good. And I'm just going to go right along the edge. About 1/8 of an inch. You can certainly use the 1/8 of an inch line on your throat plate or bobbin lid, wherever it happens to be on your machine. There it is. And I'm going to put another one on this side, even though I don't think it tells me to do that. Yeah, it does. I'm thinking maybe I want to put some more lines on here. At least 2 more. I don't know. What do you think? Should I put another one? Another 2 lines down through there, just to kind of make it to where it doesn't wad up. I think I will. I'm just going to use the side of my walking foot. That's going to put like a, looks like a 3/8 or maybe a little bit more between that first stitching and where this is landing. I'm going to do one on the other side like that. There it is. Should I do one down the middle? That does definitely help it stay not wadded up. I might do 2 more. Let's see. Let me do a little trick here. Okay, so this time I used a different point of reference on my walking foot, and I did it this way. That looks pretty good. I think I'll just leave that. That looks pretty classy. I better do this one before I forget what I used. Let's see here. Okay. And here goes our first one. Eighth of an inch. Got the too jazzy knot went on there. Probably need to clean my machine underneath that throat plate. Looks like I might need to do that. But I'm trying to just get done. So let's see if we can. I'm thinking it happened on the dark purple. Oh, it's not threaded. Better rethread. Okay. And we start again. Alrighty. Got it. Pretty cool, huh? Let's trim off my mess here. Alright, so now our straps are made, ready to be put on. Just trimming some of my threads where I started and stopped. Yeah. Something not right about that one. I'm going to go over it again. Got a little loop. Probably was going too fast. I didn't even catch it. There we go. Okay, that looks good. What's the next step? We have our bag. We have our strips, our straps, our strips and our straps. And what is next? Okay, so it's telling us to do it this way. We need to pin it on, baste it on, pull it around, and then do the other side, okay? Okay, so I think I got this figured out now. We need to take one of these straps, and here's the opening of my bag, and I'm just going to go about, I don't know, maybe like a half an inch away from that middle square into the square beside it. See that edge? So it's like half an inch from this, where those two squares are sewn together. And that's what it looks like on the picture that I have of it, which is, there you can kind of see about where they are. Close to where those squares are sewn. So I'm going to do that. It just takes a basting stitch. I'm going to try not to get the rest of the bag caught in it. I'd say about a quarter of an inch or so there. Seam allowance. And then we'll take the other one and do the same thing on this side. Okay, make sure this is back. There we go. And now what we have to do, okay, so those are on there like this, and they will be up like this eventually. We have to get our lining done. So to get it attached to the other side, we have to kind of scrunch this up and make sure not twist it, and do the same thing on the other side. So you see how I've got it brung around from the side I sewed from, around the bottom and up to the other side. It really scrunches it up, but that's how we have to do it. Make sure I'm doing the right one. It's this one. There we go. So baste this on, and again, ½ inch from that seam line between those squares. There's one. And then the other one, make sure it's not twisted. Same thing, same deal. Here's this one, and then here's this one. 1/2 inch away from the seam line between those two squares. Okay, so we've got it basted all the way on all 4 ends. So now it looks like this. See, we've got it all bunched up. There's our two straps, and they go all the way around to the other side. Okay? So now for our lining that we made, it's still wrong side out, which is how we want it. So we want to insert the bag into it. And be sure we're not going to get any of that fabric caught in the seam line we're getting ready to make. So we're going to match up the seam of the lining with the seam of the bag, and that should fit exactly. And I think I'm going to use some wonder clips or some binding clips for this to keep it together and in place while we're doing this, because we're going to sew around the top edge of all of this. And hopefully it's exactly the right size. It should be. That was cut to that size originally. Remember when we laid out our backing and cut all those edges off to match our quilted piece we had made, or I had made? So it should be exactly the right size. And we need to leave a 4-inch gap, probably right here in the sewing, so that we can turn it. So we can turn that lining into the inside of the bag. And then we'll go back around and put a stitch line around the outside as well, and that will close up the little gap. So I'm going to leave a little gap here. I'm still going to stretch this to make sure I'm getting it in the right place. So I'm just going to leave a big space here, and that's going to let me know that, hey, I need to leave enough that I can get my hand in there. They said 4 inches, but you have to be able to get your hand in there. Okay, ready to sew that top edge all the way around. So I'm just going to start over here. And mind you, I still have my walking foot on. It's quite alright. And we want to have our stitch length back to about 2, I guess. I had it on a, when I was doing those straps, I had it on 3 for top stitching. And I probably could have left it on 3 for this, but we'll just do this just in case. Just in case it needs some a little bit tighter reinforcement there along the top edge. I'm just making a 1/4 inch seam all the way around. Taking my clips out as I go. Always make sure your fabric's away from the presser foot, all your extra parts of your bag back here. That would be a very bad fail if you got your bag fabric caught up in this while you were sewing. Ask me how I know that. It's happened to me many times in my life. Even an experienced person who sews can make those mistakes. But usually when you make that mistake, you want to do everything you can to avoid it. Okay, there's my little space for my hand. So I'm going to go to about right there. I'm going to back stitch a couple times to make that strong while I'm manipulating the bag, turning it inside out here in a minute. So now I need to break that thread and go over probably about right there, I would say. And I'm going to back stitch a couple times again on this side, just to reinforce it while I'm turning it inside out. Or outside in. One of the two. Okay. Getting around to our seam here. And I've met back around. I'm going to back stitch a couple times there. Alright, so let's see if we can get this turned right side out. Once you grab a little bit of it, usually you can just kind of gently pull the two things away from each other, and just kind of happens. Okay. There we go. Get the inside here straightened out. And there we are. The right side is on the inside. Here are our straps. Hopefully I didn't twist that. There we go. Love it. Now all I have to do is press this. I want to try to, probably since I have this hole still, I could go in there with a tool and get those really straightened out nice. Or my fingers. Seems to be working pretty good. And then I'll be able to go over to the iron and iron that down really nice, especially this part here that I left open. So I'm gonna have to turn that under and get that under as well, this thick part where, you know, it has the batting, the outside. So I'm going to have to do that, and I'll probably use some clips to hold that. So let me go do that, and I'll show you how that looks. Okay. This is where one of those pressing hams. Do you know what a pressing ham is? Have you seen those stuffed? It looks like the size of a ham, like you buy in a store. But it's used for pressing. So you could do those, you know, curved edges really well. That would have come in really handy here. But I don't have one. I never thought, even when I was doing dressmaking and garment sewing, I never had one. I just didn't want to spend the money on it, I guess. Alright, so now we're going to lift this all the way up. See, here's where I clipped my hole, and then I believe I have to get these handles on the right side of the presser foot to be able to do this. So let me see how I do with that. Alright, so I'm going to change it back to 3 stitch length for top stitching. And I'm going to start over here in the, I'm going to start in the armpit of the of the bag, just in case this doesn't go well. You won't be able to see my beginning thing here. Get my thread in its place. Okay, just gonna go, it says here to do a 1/4 inch. I'm gonna do more like probably more like an 1/8 of an inch. Just my personal preference. You can do a 1/4 of an inch. Okay. And you don't want to let your inner lining peep out, so stuff it back under there if it wants to bulge out on you. Now you're going to pull your straps up away from, from the top of the bag. My little linings wanting to peek through. It's not the end of the world, but you just don't want to make a big mess of it. Sticking out real big. Well, mine just seems to want to poke out a little bit. It's okay. A little bit of thickness there. I'm going to use my stiletto to kind of push through. And see, as you move on down through, your handles are going to cooperate and move where they need to be. Just kind of check ahead, make sure everything's doing what it's supposed to do. Staying where it's supposed to stay. Just clipping off my beginning threads there so they didn't get tangled up in anything. And there we have ourselves a market bag. Yes, we do. Isn't it cute? Let me go get you a better picture of it. Okay, so here's our bag all finished. And as a reference, I have a package of queen size batting in there, so that can give you an idea of about what size this is. It's about a 20-inch bag, I would say, or maybe, well, now that it's sewn up, I would say maybe an 18-inch bag, and it's about 4 inches wide. So you definitely could, get a lot in there. It'd also be a nice bag to take on a retreat with your sewing things in it. But yeah, that's our market bag. And I'll give you a little close up here of the quilting. I hope you can see it. You're probably just seeing my shadow. That turned out cute. I'll do that again. I did a cross hatch, just an X through the squares, and then I came back and did like a leaf pattern through the seams. And as you can see there, it kind of looks like a flower. inside that square. Let me turn it so you can see the other side. There's the other side. And I'll put in the description box the fabric that I used for the charm squares and where you can find this pattern. So make yourself a market bag. It's not that hard. Nice little simple bag, but roomy. Very useful. Okay, thanks for watching. And if you have any questions about this, leave them in the comments. And I'll see you soon. Bye.